Welcome back, my fellow sapiens, the Green Scorpion here. Now rested up for my big top 50 project, but no time to dawdle in the past. There's a mountain of countdowns that I need to get to. I get a ton of suggestions from subscribers that I usually can't make time for, but today's unique specimen was hard to ignore. Elise Arainai actually made me this finely crafted pixel model of Hanit, one of my new favorite characters, don't judge me, and mailed it to me with the request that I make a video about Beastmasters. Needless to say, my interest was piqued, and how can I say no to that face? Since the Neolithic Revolution, humankind has tamed animals to help further civilization. We've trained livestock to work, pets to do tricks, and in a few examples, we deputized noble beasts to fight for us. At worst, this could be for entertainment, like dogfighting and such. Yeah, no good. But in other cases, it was just a dangerous world out there, and it helped to have a trusty canine by your side. Fantasy has since romanticized this motif with characters best known for their companionship with the local fauna. Either they have a deep bond with a singular friend that follows them through thick and thin, or they are so in tune with nature that they can recruit any monster they meet and pit them against bigger monsters. Whether it's an overwhelming stampede of natural power or just a helpful bird that scopes out the area, Beastmasters excel at strength and versatility. Now, approaching this topic proved a little difficult. On the one hand, I could view it as a character trope, searching for upstanding examples the same way I did with assassins, berserkers, or robots. On the other hand, these characters all use beasts to fight. Animals are their weapons, which could make this an unofficial Weapons Month list. I decided to treat this list as a hybrid of the two, considering both prowess and interesting implementation of story and mechanics. Even then, with so many different approaches to beast mastery, not to mention so many kinds of animals they might utilize, this can be a case of apples and oranges. Or antelopes and orangutans? Plus, some candidates might recruit dozens of minions, some might just stick to one. Some might let their beast do all of the fighting, some might use the animal to support their own fighting style. Personally, I favor those who fight alongside their beast, but there are many ways to go about this, so let's make a few quick omissions right now. If the animal is only used as a mount, it probably won't crack the top 10. It's got to do more than just carry its master. Also, I know there's a history of witches and wizards using familiars as magical conduits, but that's not really what I'm going for either. Additionally, the Beastmaster does not need to be human, but they should be a higher level of sentience than the beasts they're commanding. For example, I wouldn't call Banjo a Beastmaster for weaponizing Kazooie. Those two are partners. But I might consider someone like Cream the Rabbit for using someone like Cheese, even if she herself is an anthropomorphic rabbit. Lastly, I want to draw a line between Beastmasters and Summoners. Beastmasters use creatures that you can find in the wild. It doesn't have to be a species we might see in our world, it can be a dragon or a chocobo or whatever. But Yuna pulling a spiritual esper of flame out of thin air doesn't feel like the same kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot to feel out here, so just bear with me, alright? These are my top 10 video game Beastmasters. Animal husbandry is usually pretty streamlined in video games. You might need to meet some requirements to capture a creature and maybe level them up so they learn different commands. But as far as getting the animal to listen to you, come when you call it, not eat you, that much is a given. Usually. But Team Ico is far from usual, and basic obedience training is the central element of The Last Guardian. It's a classic boy and his dog story. But in this case, the nameless boy narrowly escaped the ritual sacrifice, while the dog is a chimeric dog-cat-bird hybrid. With horns. Also, he shoots lightning. The boy finds himself in a cave next to this imprisoned griffin thing, and while he's scary at first, the boy wins over this fantastic beast with snacks and pets, naming him Trico. It's then up to Trico and the boy to escape the valley and get the boy home. Okay, it's starting to annoy me just calling him the boy. I'm starting to sound like Christopher Judge.
Read boy.
You know what? From now on, let's call him Stuart. So Stuart needs to find ways to use Trico's size and abilities to progress. But Trico is his own beast, and while you do eventually learn commands to more directly navigate him, he just kinda does his own thing sometimes. This caused some players to ultimately reject The Last Guardian as buggy and unresponsive, but I kinda love how unpredictable Trico is. It makes it all the more rewarding when you pull off a daring catch. It's all about figuring out how to command him. If you get frustrated and start mashing the buttons, you're only going to confuse him more. And for overcoming this adversity, Stuart deserves some serious credit. Time and again, he needs to stop to feed Trico, cajole him into jumping into a lake, or clear the field of these stained glass eye symbols that Trico was previously trained to fear. And it pays off in spades. Anytime Stuart is in trouble, be it from these reanimated armors or other chimeras, Trico goes absolutely ham. These knights don't stand a chance, and Stuart can either ride safely atop his death machine, or take a more active role either by pulling spears out of Trico's hide, or use a reflective mirror like a laser pointer, which tells Trico where to shoot his plasma blasts. Make sure to calm Trico down after every fight though, he gets a little worked up. The story is vague in the usual Team Ico sense, but we know the game's narration comes from a grown-up Stuart, reflecting on his adventure with Trico, and it's clearly made a huge impact on him. At the beginning of the game, you see these sketches of all different animals, even mythical ones, leading up to Trico. Maybe Stuart grew up with a greater interest in zoology after all this, and helped catalog the local wildlife for his village. It's expected that a story like this is going to pull at your heartstrings, but be ready for some hallmark moments in this game. You will believe that a dog can fly. At number 9, we have Emile Castagne from the spin-off sequel game Tales of Symphonia: Dawn of the New World. Well, maybe I should say we have Ratatosk from Dawn of the New World. It's complicated, and it'll be harder if I get into spoilers, so just remember that the rabbit hole goes even deeper than what I'm telling you. Emile starts the game as the biggest wuss you've ever seen. Seriously, he follows a mystery man named Richter into a dungeon and nearly gets killed by tadpoles. Until he happens upon Tenebrae, the Centurion of Darkness who imbues Emile with the spirit of Ratatosk, the Lord of Monsters. Now, anytime Emile's in battle, Ratatosk possesses his body with crazed ferocity. In actuality, Ratatosk is a summon spirit, similar to the elementals Sheena summons, but way more important. Lord of Monsters doesn't begin to cover it. He basically controls the way mana flows through this world, and created all monsters as a way of balancing the energy flowing through the realm. His powers were stunted from being sealed away for 10,000 years, as well as a lethal wound from Richter and Lloyd screwing around with the balance of the universe, but even a weakened Ratatosk is one to be feared. By reuniting with his 8 Centurion minions, he gains the power to channel different elements through his sword. He can use this to alter the elements of the battlefield, which allows him to make pacts with any monster the party encounters on their journey. Yeah, this game has an actual monster taming mechanic. It's simultaneously shallow and convoluted, especially since all of your favorite characters from the first game return and often take the party slots reserved for your monsters anyway. Regardless, being able to tame any monster of 8 different elements is a big deal. With some training, he can even evolve them into new forms, and devolve them again, sometimes as completely different species. Honestly, it's all really confusing, and I'd rather just use Genis and Rain again, if only the returning heroes didn't all have arbitrary level caps. But despite my complaints, Ratatosk is a pretty powerful guy. He's basically a god. But that's also part of why I'm keeping him so low. Really, the Beast Mastery is a small aspect of his overall ability. Ratatosk is the master of mana, spirit of the world tree. He has his limits, but at full power he can simply rewrite the universe to make the flow of energy work differently. And while his magic menagerie has some pretty strong and interesting creatures, Ratatosk doesn't do much as far as commanding them. They fight alongside each other, and there's not much team synergy. The monster is just another, less interesting party member. I don't know, maybe my dislike of this game is clouding my judgment. It's just very... okay. Still, with dragons, golems, yetis, and manticores in his catalog, this is not a spirit you want to mess with.
Should have never gone against me.
So, a primal deity of wildlife, magic, and energy itself for number 9. For number 8, a 12-year-old girl. Don't laugh, animes taught me not to underestimate 12-year-olds with magical powers, though here in the States, Maria Renard's power went unrecognized for some time. Maria premieres in Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which was originally released on the TurboGrafx 16. Or should I say, the PC Engine, because this little gem never released outside of Japan. It was remade, or more like demade, as Castlevania Dracula X for the Super Nintendo, which watered down the quality and deprived Maria of her playable status. So, you know Richter Belmont? You know, the guy that got into Smash Brothers? You know, that guy? Well, he didn't defeat Dracula alone. He had this crazy tyke by his side. A distant relative to the Belmont clan, Maria has latent magical ability which manifests in full force after she's kidnapped by Dracula's forces. Once Richter rescues her, she can take on the castle herself with a ridiculously useful double jump and the power to control small creatures. Her basic attack is a flock of white doves, which her family raised for spiritual protection, and the fact that you can beat the forces of darkness by pelting them with doves is just amazing. Whereas Richter picks up axes and holy water to round out his arsenal, Maria's sub-weapons are cardinals, cats, and a mother-freaking dragon! Then, to turn it up a notch, Maria can use this game's item crash feature to summon a firebird, a tiger, a bigger dragon, and the great tortoise spirit. And if these seem familiar, it's because they're the Shijin, 4 guardians from Chinese myth that represent the north, south, east, and west. The Renard family has a pact with these ancient spirits and can call them when necessary, which admittedly overlaps into summoner territory now that I think about it. So maybe give half points for those, but full credit for the smaller critters. She pulls them out of hammer space, but that's a common mechanic for Beastmasters in this sort of game when they're not being used. I don't think she actually conjures these small animals. I prefer to think she carries a purse full of cats. At any rate, Maria is the obvious power pick in Rondo of Blood. The game clearly intended her as the easy mode. Her victory screens are very cutesy, almost like the game's mocking your casual playstyle by making you play as a little girl. Nice try, Rondo, but no matter how you slice it, Maria's a badass and I'm not gonna feel bad for picking her. Not in this game, at least. Castlevania Judgment, on the other hand. Yikes. I've said time and again, this game really ruins some of the characters' designs, but I think Maria is the greatest victim. Look, Judgment, if you don't like Rondo's cutesy visuals, that's fine and dandy, but she was already redesigned in the PSP remake, and there's an older version of her in Symphony of the Night. This! I don't even know who this is. I like the pet owl, I guess. It references her concept art in Symphony, but they took this confident, kind-hearted Spitfire and turned her into an airheaded idiot who spends half her day comparing her anatomy to other women in the game. Sure, Maria was always comic relief, but she still had some dignity. The girl made a fool out of Dracula faster than any Belmont ever could. Show some respect.
Good boy, Oscar.
One way to separate Beastmasters is by quantity. Stuart here has one animal best friend that he uses for everything, while Ratatosk and Maria don't really play favorites, they just grab any beastie they can find. The great thing about Hanit is that she can do both. She captures and commands monsters she meets in battle, but also has her own lifelong companion, Linde, a snowy leopard. Super cool animal companion choice, by the way. Snowy leopards in the wild are actually extremely independent, only interacting with others either to raise kids or make them. Hanit must be pretty charming to keep this one around. Though, if I'm being honest, I can totally see why. Don't judge me. One of the last members of the remote Zvarki clan, Hanit was born and raised in nature, and trains under her master to be the best huntress she can be. Maybe not the best career for endearing yourself to wildlife, but the Zvarki take to the more ethical side of hunting. Rather than poaching or hunting for pure sport, Octopath Traveler emphasizes the importance of hunters to the ecosystem, controlling the population of certain species and keeping dangerous carnivores within their own habitat where they can't hurt innocent people. In fact, Hanit's first major hunt is a night beast that's been forced to relocate by another unnatural predator, the abhorrent Red-Eye. At the beginning of her story, Hanit's master went to slay Red-Eye to end its havoc, but when he fails to return, Hanit grabs her axe, her bow, and her kitty friend to finish the hunt. As a fighter, Hanit relies heavily on her bow for special abilities, but her most unique trait is that capture mechanic. Most monsters you fight have a chance of being captured, made more likely if you can get them to low health or otherwise disable them. Once caught, Hanit can call that monster in for a special effect, and like any other ability in the game, Hanit can pay battle points to make her pet's attack more potent. This makes Hanit extremely versatile. While each class has one or two weapon types and some elemental magic to work with, Hanit's personal menagerie gives her access to any weapon and element in the game, making her one of the best at hitting an enemy's weakness. Only caveat, these attacks have a finite number of uses before the animal returns to the wild, so there's some upkeep to use this power to the fullest. Even without additional troops, Linde is always available with attacks that function like a sword or a lance, so right off the bat, Hanit has 4 weapon types covered. Some of her captures can even cast spells to buff or heal the party, or deal elemental damage. And if you manage to capture a boss monster, you're in the money! It's like a nuclear warhead shaped like a wolf! And this gets admittedly fun with Hanit's provoke action. Someone will let you into their house, sick a bunch of animals on them, it'll be fine. If there's anything holding Hanit back, it's how many other avenues of battle she employs. A lot of her kit is about shooting arrows and making extra attacks with her axe, and with the secondary class system, she can do just about anything else the game has available. But no one else has a giant deer spirit on standby. Making that what thou wiltst.
I honor thee, my quarry.
One idea I've had in the pipeline for a while now is top 10 dogs. I already did cats, and as much as I love Costa, I've always seen myself as more of a dog person. I'll get to that list eventually, but thinking on it, I could fill a whole list with just human/dog super teams. Mega Man and Rush, Fiona and Huey, Shadow and Interceptor. Why are there so many teams like this? Well, it's pretty obvious actually. Dogs are believed to be the first animal ever domesticated by humans, as early as 15,000 BC. And few characters symbolize that timeless relationship more than the Houndmaster, one of my favorite classes from Darkest Dungeon. Once a lawman charged with seeking out missing persons, the Houndmaster discovered some unholy corruption in his precinct and left to pursue mercenary work. And he's taking his dog with him. Interestingly enough, his big character portrait depicts him with a bloodhound. Note the rounded ears and big floppy face. He looks mean, but I bet he's a good boy. But in-game, he's accompanied by an Irish wolfhound. Also, when developing the game, the Red Hook team referred to these two as Shag and Scoob. The Houndmaster even brings dog treats on missions that can raise his power and accuracy. Houndmaster takes a somewhat supportive role in battle, but leans towards offense. His most basic skill is Hound's Rush, sending the doggo ahead to bite any target regardless of their positioning. Not the most damaging move, but it has a chance to cause bleeding damage so your key target can get a head start on dying. Or there's the less direct Hound's Harry, hitting and possibly bleeding all enemies at once. There are faster ways to bleed out opponents, like the Highwayman's Knife, but it's a great opening move and completely wrecks bosses like the Inchoate Flesh. And with Target Whistle, he can mark an enemy for follow-up attacks while also lowering its protection, a critical move in some encounters. The dog's general lovability can also be used to lower the party's stress, and he can guard an ally from damage, and with Lick Wounds, he can even heal the Houndmaster to get him off of death's door. Pretty low-key compared to Hanit, heck, most of these entries would kick his ass, but I like how focused his moveset is on the dog. The only attack not involving the dog is this club, which would probably make a good chew toy. Even in camping situations, it's all about that pup, acting as a therapy pet for the party, scouting ahead for traps and terrors, and Hound's Watch, which nullifies the nighttime ambushes. I always use skills like this when I camp. Getting attacked when you're trying to recuperate is the worst. Get those two on a team with the Bounty Hunter or an Arbalist, and you're sure to have a good run. Well, as sure as you can be in this game. Even when things are at their worst, there's solace in seeing this man's devotion to his little friendo. I think they're both good boys.
As victories mount, so too will resistance.
The Houndmaster is great in a turn-based sense, great use of dog. But like I said before, I love it when I can see man and beast working together in battle. You know, like Kiba from Naruto. Well, I don't have anything quite that crazy, but gaming has its own dog ninja. No, not quite Shadow and Interceptor. I'm talking about Galford Weller from Samurai Showdown. Created for the first game in the Samurai Showdown series, Galford was inspired when SNK decided they wanted another ninja in the roster after Hattori Hanzo. But what will set this one apart? Make him American and give him a dog. After his dad was shot by an Old West outlaw, Galford pledged to become a superhero of justice. He took the bullet that killed his father, had it forged into his new weapon, the Justice Blade, and moved to Japan to study the samurai. Though again, his final style is much more ninja than samurai, with teleports, kunai, and the power to channel electricity through his sword. His greatest asset, of course, is Poppy, his Siberian husky. And interestingly, there is some precedence of this in real-life ninja arts. Ninja had a whole discipline called Gukin Jutsu, where they would slowly endear themselves to enemy guard dogs and eventually sneak by without them barking. But this is on a whole different level. It certainly didn't include combo attacks like this. Poppy can dash in when least expected, forcing opponents to consider multiple angles of attack at once. She can also hold someone in place for Galford's slower moves, and the two can teleport into one another, so Galford can keep his distance by throwing kunai, wait for Poppy to slip in, and then quick step right on top of another fighter. And I love hearing Galford called to Poppy. Every time he does, I think he's just saying puppy and it makes me smile.
Go, puppy!
Honorable mention to Nakaruru, another showdown character with a pet falcon. The bird's cool and all, but it's a much more passive part of the fight. Poppy's in the thick of it with you until the timer hits 0 or someone falls. I probably would have let this character pass me by if not for the 2019 series reboot. These two easily have the best super in the game. How do you even teach a dog to do that? Go ahead and award these two the ribbon for Best in Show and Best in Showdown.
Let's go! Yeah! Puppy, go! This is our justice! We did it!
A lot of credit to canines today, but let's not forget how useful birds can be. Nakaruru from Samurai Showdown, Mordecai from Borderlands, Sky from Shantae. This could almost be its own list. They're generally daintier combatants compared to old Canis Familiaris, but it's also a lot easier to keep them out of harm's way. They come in, do what they need to, then await further orders just above frame. More of a support animal, but then again, I wouldn't want those talons up close and personal. Which is the conceit of League of Legends Quinn, the Wings of Demacia. Been a while since a League character got so high up on one of my lists, but Quinn's buddy Valor always helps her ascend the ranks. Before Valor, Quinn was a border guard in the town of Uwendale, working to keep bandits and beasts out of Demacian territory. Her passion for the job was snuffed when her twin brother Caleb was slain by a ravenous beast called the Tuskvor. But on the anniversary of his death, while set upon by the exact same monster, Quinn was saved by the Azurite Eagle and the two quickly formed a close bond. Quinn fashioned a new repeating crossbow out of the Tuskvor's horns, and she and Valor went on to become Demacia's greatest ranger knight. Quinn's job title has her traveling the wilds and hunting down criminals, which is precisely how she plays. While Quinn fires at enemy minions and champions, Valor will intermittently swoop down and swipe at targets, making them more vulnerable. And no, there's no way to stop Valor from targeting you this way. Bird's gonna bird, deal with it. Vulnerable targets will take extra damage from Quinn's arrows, and Quinn can send Valor in manually with Blinding Assault, which makes the target both vulnerable and, well, blind. And while Quinn isn't a jungler in the meta, she does well out of lane in the mid-game thanks to Heightened Senses, which has Valor reveal an area nearby and preventing surprise ambushes. Also, Valor can give Quinn a boost to help her vault at targets, even jumping over terrain features to do so. Then there's her ultimate behind enemy lines. After a short channel, Valor attaches to Quinn and carries her around for the next few seconds, now boasting crazy movement speed, and in certain situations it's great for escaping a bad situation, but more often than not you're going to use it to catch up to a fleeing prize and deal the finishing blow. When Quinn's done riding Valor, she'll hop off and fire a shower of bolts that land all around her. With so many approach options, blinds, slows, and general map awareness, Quinn's a hard raptor to escape from. This was also the first time Riot pushed a champion as a duo. For a while before her release, Quinn was listed in the champions notes as Quinn and Valor, kind of like Rosalina and Luma in Smash. This was also back when Nunu was just Nunu, before Willem had any billing. The menu just shortens it to Quinn now, but everyone knows that Quinn would be nothing without Valor. She may not be my favorite marksman in the game, but I'm always gonna be extra careful when laning against her. You never know when the hunt will begin. Now here's where the ranking gets a little iffy. Pokemon. In a way, this should be number 1. Recruiting and training wildlife is the entire crux of the franchise, and with respect to the rest of the monster taming RPGs subgenre, your Digimon, Monster Rancher, Spectrobes, Fossil Fighters, Yokai Watch, etc., I think most of us agree Pokemon is the best at putting you in control of a wide variety of memorable creatures. On the other hand, calling a trainer the best Beastmaster feels, I don't know, cheap somehow. I mean, Galford and Quinn are in the thick of it, running with their beasts through dangerous situations. Pokemon battles are sterile in comparison, requiring little interaction from the human participant. But on a third hand, let's just say we're dealing with a Machamp here. Couldn't you say that that's the best kind of Beastmaster? one who literally doesn't need to fight, just issues orders. The recent games have award bonuses based on the trainer's relationship with their Pokemon too, and considering trainers can use items in battle or make strategic switches, Z-moves using wacky poses, yeah, I could argue either way with this. So let's just stick a trainer at number 3. The question is, which one? Not to be a Gen 1er, but I'm going with the OG, Red from Palatown. Protagonist of Generation 1 and impactful boss in Gen 2 onward, Red gives us the most to work with. He's also the only player character in the series to show up outside of his own games with any real impact on other regions. He's the enigmatic master atop Mount Silver. He's the contestant in the Pokemon World Tournament, and in Generation 7 he showed up at the Battle Tree, now 10 years older but still with his famous team. That team was combined from the Generation 1 starters and certain event Pokemon from Red and Blue. You got the fire-breathing Pseudo-Dragon, the Walking Forest, the Sentient Pressure Washer, the Loch Ness Monster, the Impenetrable Snooze Lord, and of course, Pikachu, Czar of Lightning. Still holding the record for highest level Pokemon of any NPC, by the way. That's a pretty well-rounded team as far as types go, more so when you remember his Psychic type Espeon from the original Gold and Silver. On top of that, his being a former protagonist means there's 144 other Pokemon players have seen him use. Ghosts like Gengar, giants like Onix, 3 legendary birds, and series badass Mewtwo himself. If you're going with the Pokemon Origins version, Red did have all 150. And if you expand your scope a little further, you see things like his Mega Venusaur in Let's Go, and the legendary Beast Trio in Pokemon Stadium 2. Good lord! Wasn't he powerful enough already? There's other worthy contenders I considered, Cynthia for being the coolest champion and studying the lore of this world's actual gods. Then you have N, who was raised by wild Pokemon and changes his team completely with every meeting, becoming one of the few NPCs to canonically catch a legendary. But I think in variety and achievements, Red is the best choice I can make, at least if you want, like, an actual character on the list. I could just say that each generation's protagonist is the best Beastmaster, because with each new region, the maximum number of different animals that they can command increases. But then we'd have to talk about the whole National Dex debate, and I don't have the energy for that right now. As a legendary figure and an overwhelming challenger, Red, I choose you. Off the beaten path of my usual games, we have the Far Cry series. Starting with Far Cry 3, the franchise asserted itself as a great example of open-world gameplay with first-person combat, and very hateable villains. But one of the most interesting aspects to me was its use of wilderness. Not only do you have enemy gunmen to worry about, keeping to the high brush is likely to get you attacked by one of the island's dangerous predators. Ubisoft expands on this aspect with Far Cry Primal, set in the year 10,000 BC. We play as Takar, a hunter of the Wenja tribe, trying to reunite his scattered people after losing his entire hunting party to a vicious saber-toothed tiger. Being a first-person shooter character in a world before guns, Takar has to make do with spears, bows, clubs, and traps, until he meets a shaman named Tensei, who kindly offers Takar a magic potion. And by kindly offers, I mean he shoves it down Takar's throat. This gives Takar a trippy vision of an owl spirit, after which he awakens as the Beastmaster. Oh, wow, they actually call him that. Cool, guess we have to list him now. From this point forward, Takar can tame the various critters he meets on his journey through Oros. You'll need to build a skill tree to recruit certain animals, but once they're available to you, taming a wolf or a panther is actually very easy. You just do the whole Chris Pratt Jurassic World thing for a second and bam, best friends. Except for a few special beasts that require some battle beforehand, including that saber-tooth that killed Takar's clansmen. Glad to see you're not bitter, Takar. I do wish there was more variety though. Even with the Beast Mastery tree completed, your crew is mostly limited to predatory mammals. I would love to command one of these mammoths or the crocodiles, that would be awesome. But your animal buddies are extremely useful. Where in older games, you might find a hill overlooking an enemy camp and start sniping the bad guys, now you can climb the hill, find a good place to sit, and release the bear. And the badgers. Do not screw with the badgers. Every other animal is scared of them, and they should be. But the most useful animal in your repertoire is easily the owl. which gets 2 whole skill trees devoted to it. Takar and the owl have a special connection that makes Takar privy to anything the owl sees, giving you this sort of detective vision and letting you mark prey from afar. Even better, Takar can craft poisonous bombs and pass them to the owl for expedited delivery. Dominant strategy: give the owl a berserk bomb, drop it on the biggest, beefiest guy in the camp, and let him kill all the other guys, then strut in and finish off his tired behind. It's the Mesozoic era. Fair play hasn't been invented yet. We've seen critter collectors, we've seen warriors with battle pets, but let's get to the heart of the issue. What's the first thing you think of when I say Beastmaster? For me, it's that 1982 movie with Mark Singer. That's probably not what you thought of, but that's the kind of character I imagine. Conan with animal friends. I want a Beastmaster who can recruit most any animal he sees, master of mammals, birds, maybe even reptiles, who keeps a few personal favorites around and gives them dorky names. Indistinguishable from an animal himself. And there's only one video game character that I feel best fits that example.
I'm on the hunt. I'm after you.
Ah, man, I kinda hate talking about Warcraft. I'm always afraid I'm gonna overlook something and annoy all the hardcore fans. But my fear of embarrassment is no reason to deprive this worthy contender. Hailing from Draenor, and yes, I know that's not really how you pronounce it, but bear with me, Rexxar is a member of the Mok'Nathal clan, having a mixed lineage of both orcs and ogres. Big lumbering bruisers that they are, the Mok'Nathal took well to the wilderness and have been taming beasts for generations, which made them valued allies of the Horde during the First and Second Wars. Well, valued is a strong word. Purebred orcs don't actually treat half-breeds with much respect, but will gladly put them and their animal companions on the front lines. Rexxar served the Horde with his black wolf Haratha alongside a contingent of orcish warlocks, but after one warlock received a mortal wound, he turned on Rexxar and attempted to steal his life energy. Haratha the wolf intercepted the spell, giving her life for Rexxar's. It wasn't long after this that Rexxar gave up on the Horde, deciding that pitiful squabble between races and the constant betrayals from demons and warlocks weren't for him. He instead made like a beast and went to live in the woods. And I couldn't find any confirmation on this, but the black pelt he wears over his eyes, is that supposed to be Haratha? Like he wears it in memory of her and as a symbol of his distrust of organized society? Because if so, that's pretty cool. Since then, Rexxar's become truly one with nature, without even his fellow Mok'Nathal for company, just the flora and fauna surrounding him. He never stays in one spot for too long, and it's implied that anywhere he goes, he knows at least a few animals he can call upon, but he has some favorites that are always by his side. Most notably, there's Misha, a big-ass grizzly bear. Rexxar's default strategy is generally to rush in side by side with Misha, with her claws and his twin axes. But for a more strategic approach, Rexxar has his own hawk, Spirit, who serves mainly for scouting the area but can really mess fools up with her talons if requested. In Warcraft 3, hawks even came with invisibility spells, allowing them to search behind enemy lines without even being attacked. Rexxar also has a ton of boars, or quill beasts, at his disposal, the leader of which he's named Hoofer. In some games, they could fire spikes to take out flying creatures, and in Heroes of the Storm, this stampede serves as one of his ultimates. And though it's not part of his main entourage, Rexxar's been seen riding his wyvern Leok whenever he's in a hurry. He can't be expected to walk everywhere. Beastmasters were actually a generic unit in Warcraft 3, complete with summonable bears, birds, boars, plus a crazy ultimate with exploding thunder lizards. But Rexxar's got the spotlight in the Frozen Throne expansion, starring in his own campaign, The Founding of Durotar. While Warcraft 3 normally plays like a real-time strategy game, the Durotar expansion is like a precursor to World of Warcraft, instead focusing you on one hero and his friends. Though Rexxar is a one-man army all his own, you almost could play it as an RTS. Still doing the wilderness thing, Rexxar answers a call and gets himself involved in the Horde again, helping the Orc commander Thrall unite a few disparate factions against a human general that would see them all wiped out. And it turns out, a Beastmaster is the perfect ambassador when it comes to working with some of these less urbane races. Trolls, ogres, Tauren, even a traveling panda man all rally behind Rexxar in appreciation of his strength. Because if you can earn a bear's respect, surely you can talk some ogres into helping out. Rexxar tells them all what they want to hear. That they aren't banding together for the sake of politics and borderlines, but for survival. And in the game of survival, it pays to have some friends you can fall back on. That's why Rexxar is number 1. He eschews society not because he thinks he's above it, but because he sees everyone as equals until they otherwise prove themselves. He's not antisocial, he just finds the greatest company in the woods and the wilds. He can look at any being, wolf, pig, hawk, human, troll, or Pandarian, understand their worth, and lead them to the greatest potential. A friend to few, but an ally to all deserving, and a damn strong enemy if you piss him off. Oh, and if anyone's wondering where Karok is from Dota 2, it felt redundant to rank him. He's basically just a reskinned Rexxar from the first Dota. Though man, Rexxar was broken in that game! I'm the Green Scorpion, and thank you for watching my video on the kings and queens of all wildlife. Although, do tune in next time as we expand on the topic. This one's gonna sting.